Hello everyone, this is the FIDE Master Alessandro Santagati, and in this video we are going to see the game between the FIDE Master Casella against Joachim Perkins. Joachim is a Candidate Master, and this game was played in 2016. White was Casella, black was Perkins. Let's go to see this game, very interesting. So, white played e4, black played c5, so the Sicilian, knight f3, then knight c6, d4, and after d4, cd4, knight d4, and knight f6. So, knight c3, e5. E5, it's a very common and interesting move for black in this position. The idea is fight for the center. Black weakens the two squares, d6 and d5 would be weak, but at the same time, black will be able to develop the bridge in a good square that is e6. So we can say black creates some weaknesses in his side, but at the same time, black can develop the pieces very, very active. White played knight b5, and now black played d6 to stop the move knight d6, because knight d6 will force the bishop to take, and the dark bishop is useful for black. And for this reason, black played d6 to stop this this move for the knight. Bishop g5, and now a6, because this knight on b5 is very, very annoying for black. Is attacking d6, is threatening c7, some good squares, so it's very important for black get rid of this knight, so a6 makes sense. Then knight a3, b5, threatening, taking space on the queen side and also attacking b4. So white has to take on f6, and now pawn f6. Okay, that's a very important theoretical move, take with the pawn. If black takes with the queen, the main problem is that after knight e5, the queen is under attack, so the queen has to go back to cover the square c7, and then white can go, even bishop b5 I think is possible in this position, so bishop b5, then pawn b5, and knight b5 looks quite good for white, because there are many big pressure on c7. And but also c3 can make sense, and the point is that, yeah, black is too passive now. Black has no activity, and for this reason usually is better take with the pawn in this position, because taking with the pawn, it's true that this pawn is a weakness, actually, but at the same time black can later push on f5 the pawn f. So white play knight e5, f5. That's important to remove remove the weakness, and at the same time try to make more pressure against the knight, removing the defender on e4. So bishop d3 was played by white, and now bishop e6 to create pressure against the knight. So if white takes the pawn on f5, for sure black can easily take the knight, so the pawn e4 is untouchable. Castle, and now bishop g7 to complete the development of the minor pieces and to allow the castle. White played queen h5, and now black played h6. Until here, all this line is a very famous and theoretical line, so it's not new for chess player. Probably both players knew this, maybe not until here, but they knew this kind of position is not new for both players, I think. And after c4, black took on c4, because the other option is to play b4. It's playable, but then the knight can go to c2, and then the knight can try to play to e3, in which the knight is okay, is attacking. So black took on c4, knight takes c4, and now black played f4. He played f4 because in this way he can cover the square e3, so the knight on e3 is not available. Then rook d1 and rook c8 to make pressure on the open file. Bishop b1, and now knight d4. This move knight d4, it's quite interesting. It's a very good square for the knight, because the square is not it's not possible for white attack this knight with pawns, so the knight looks quite nice. But in the future, white can try to maybe sacrifice the exchange for the knight. Not here, because here there isn't enough compensation, because imagine you take now. Yeah, you weaken the structure, but I think it's not enough. So yeah, you can do that, but it's not enough. Usually, when you sacrifice the exchange, it's not always true, but we can say in general, when you sacrifice the exchange and you know that you can break the enemy structure, you can weaken a lot the enemy structure, usually you need to take also one pawn. So usually if you sacrifice the rook for knight and pawn, and at the same time you weaken the structure, this sacrifice can be good for you. And this happened in the game, because if we go forward the game, white played b3, and black played f3 in order to attack, and now g3, rook b8. And I don't know, yeah, rook b8 can have the idea to make pressure, on the file, maybe not now, but in the future, play for a5, f4. Looks quite interesting for black. And now white played a good move. Now white played rook takes d4. Now this sacrifice is good for white, because the idea is that white can take the knight, and white can also take the pawn f3. That is annoying pawn, is blocking the white king. So it's like white gives 5 points and it takes back 4, but at the same time white can weaken the black structure, and white can also block maybe the black attack. So I like this move that in this game played Casella. Casella played the rook d4. This was a good move, and then he took the pawn. Correct. Now castle. Okay, now I think white is slightly better. I prefer white in this position, but in this game, in this particular position, white didn't play the right moves. The point is that the knight on d5 is good, and yeah, it's okay for white allow bishop takes d5, pawn takes d5, because after that the queen can be very strong in the light diagonal. So it's like opposite color bishops in this case is in the white favor. White made a mistake playing knight f4. This was a mistake because now black played correctly. Bishop takes knight on c4. And it's much different because now the bishop is not open. So it's like a trade that allow black to open the file and to stop the bishop, we can say. So yeah, it's not so bad for white, but now I think white doesn't have any advantage after that. So I think the positions are around equal. But if white doesn't play it, so let's say white plays another move, we can imagine also even h4, for example, to create pressure, to make threats. Black is stuck because bishop d5 is a mistake, because after pawn takes, how I said before, the queen can go to d3 or e4, threatening the king. So I think white is very good in this position. So I think it was very useful for white keep the knight on d5, don't move the knight to f4, but he played that, so after that, rook b2. Yeah, black plays active with the rook, and it's good. And queen d7, black can improve his position, because in the endgame, the rook is stronger than the minor piece, so now this trade is in the black favor, because now black is going like in the endgame, in which black can take more advantage, we can say. So after king g2, black played rook takes a2 is important, because in this way black has a pass pawn that can be very, very important. And e5. It's the only way, I think. I think white has to create threats, and the only way is open the bishop. So e5 was an interesting option for him. And now c5. In order to like block and also threaten move like c6 and followed by knight e7. So to push the pawn, to cover some squares, and to make some tricks. Rook a3, and then bishop f5. I think this is okay for black, because after the trade of queens, I think that game is better for black, and this is very important. Play precise move like e4 to defend the rook, and then bishop g4, and then rook b3. White played the rook e1, rook b5, knight c7. And now we have a very important key point of the game. Black now is very good. Black can win the game, but now black made a big mistake. The point is that position still... the position is complicated, so it's not easy. So sometimes we are scared and we want trade pieces in order to take an easy draw. In this game, white in theory is stronger because white is a FIDE master against a candidate master, so I think there are around 200 or 300 points of difference in this game. So sometimes we are scared and we want to simplify too much, but simplify too much doesn't allow to win. That's the problem. So in this case, I think the best move for black was play rook a5, simply defend the pawn, because black cannot take the pawn on c5 for the fork problem. So there is a fork after rook takes c5. So it's important, don't give the rook, and it's important defend your pawn. So it's very important to defend your pawn on a6. This was important in this game. Defend the pawn because the pawn can help you to win the game at the end, and keep the rook because the rook in the endgame is very strong, is much stronger than the minor piece. This was the idea that I think is very good and is winning for black in this case. But in the game, black played e3, and this was a mistake because now white can't take the rook. Let's see what I can continue the game after rook a5. Rook a5, maybe white can take the pawn on e4, that is not defended. Then black can play rook c8, for example, or rook b2, rook b4. There are many moves. Maybe let's say this. No, sorry, c8 is a blunder. There is the bishop, so it doesn't work. So we can say black should play something else. Okay, I want to threaten the pawn and I want to remove the fork. Okay? So in order to do that, I can try to play even rook b4, for example, or rook b2, or rook d8. Rook d8, it's easier. Rook d8 because I support the push, and I also remove this problem about the fork. Yes, I lose the a6 pawn, but then the knight would be trapped. So I think it's a good idea. So imagine now white plays rook e2, I take the pawn, and after knight a6 I can just play rook c3 because the knight is not completely trapped, but c7 and c5 are blocked. b8 is blocked, and the only square is b4. So maybe I can, and then I can also push the pawn. So for sure black now is very strong because black is up in exchange, black has a pass pawn, so black has good weapon to try to win this game. So this was the idea, I think. Instead to play e3 and give back the rook, I think it was better play rook a5 followed by rook d8. I think rook e2 is good because when I take c5, I can also threaten f5, so I think it's good for white to remove the rook from e4 because e4 it's a bit dangerous. So I think after e3, knight b5, rook b5, c6, rook c7, and after all the straights, yeah, black is always slightly better because black is up a pawn, but it's not easy win this game. I think if white plays correctly, can draw, and at the end was a draw because white played quite well, and then I don't think there is much to do in this endgame because it's not a good endgame to try to win this well, for sure. Black is very solid, black has no problems, but black doesn't win. That's and that's all, and at the end it finished with a draw. There is no way to make big progress. So the point was in the endgame, the move rook a5. If black plays rook a5, then rook can win. I think can win that game. If not, then the game, it's always better for black, yeah. The game is better for black, but not winning in game. In the opening, I think white was slightly better, and I like the idea rook d4. The problem for white was that it didn't continue the right way. So the sacrifice was correct, but the mistake was knight f4 because after bishop c4, white gives gives the initiative. So I should play moves like h4 in order to continue to make pressure slowly, because I will say the black bishop is blocked, and if black trade on d5, this trade is completely fine for white, opening the light diagonal. Very interesting game between Casella against Perkins. A very interesting game with nice ideas about the middle game and also about the end game. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have questions, feel free to comment. Have a good day. Bye.